Andreas Krieg is an assistant professor at the Defence Studies Department at King's College London. He joins us now from Berlin. So let's look at these missiles that were fired by Houthi rebels to Saudi. What do we know about the type of weapons that they are?
Right. What we know so far is they're probably Burkan 2H, which is the newest type that the Yemeni armed forces have or had. The Houthis have taken control of this part of the Yemeni armed forces almost 3 or 4 years ago. But at that time, the Burkans that they had in possession weren't as capable as those ones that have been fired over the last 6 months, particularly in terms of range, but also in terms of precision. What we've seen now is that they were actually very capable of targeting precisely, more or less precisely, areas within Riyadh, which suggests that the missiles they have today have been augmented in terms of their capability. So we have the old stock still there, but they've been augmented with new technology that must have come from overseas. Partially they have been developed locally in Yemen, but to be honest, the Houthis don't have the capability, the knowledge or the technology to actually build this kind of relatively sophisticated missile system.
Okay, so when you say they must come from overseas, are we then talking about them coming from Iran?
Most likely. I'm not saying they... So there is a blockade in place. I mean, part of the human tragedy is, or the reason for the human tragedy is because the Saudi or UAE coalition have a blockade in place. Because for exactly that matter, that, you know, no missiles are coming into the country. But so you can't ship entire missiles into the country, but there are alternative ways to put parts and pieces on ships or over the land route, even through Oman or other places, and then reassemble them locally in the northern parts of Yemen, as they have done. So it suggests that the Quds Force, who have operatives on the ground in Yemen, have helped the Houthis and the Yemeni armed forces to basically augment the capability of the missiles in order to make them more capable, which is part of the deal. You know, the Houthis are trying to put pressure on Saudi Arabia in the upcoming negotiations. It seems like there will be mediation on the way with the new UN envoy. The British government has certified or has agreed to play a more active role in mediating that conflict. The Saudis need to stop now. They realize that there will be an increased toll on their head, and increased pressure on Saudi Arabia and Saudi people. And the Houthis say, you know, if you don't negotiate with us, we will continue with more sophisticated weaponry, more missiles being fired, and there will be more dead on the side of Saudi Arabia, which is something they can't sustain.
In 3 years of war with vastly superior weaponry, lots more money, why have the Saudis not been able to defeat the Houthis, or at the very least destroy their weapons stockpiles?
Well, firstly, I think it is because the Houthis are very good in concealing their capability. They've been hiding the weaponry, they have been assembling the weaponry on spot and then firing them off, which makes it very, very difficult to target them from the air. The other problem is the Saudi Air Force doesn't have the kind of reconnaissance capability in order to properly locate targets, and that's part of the problem of this entire war. The Saudis are unable to actually pinpoint targets, and that's why they drop bombs on targets which are actually not military but civilian targets. And the other issue is that the Saudis don't have any boots on the ground. They have no eyes on the ground. The human intelligence network that you need in order to pinpoint precision strikes on such targets is not available. And I think that is the biggest problem. That's why this war will never be won from the air, and it will probably never be won militarily. It's a war that has to come to an end through a political process.
Well, let's hope it does. Andreas Krieg, very interesting to speak to you. Thanks for joining us there from Berlin.